It's time for the great British debate. I'm asking, should students still be taught Shakespeare? Some students heading to university in September may find no sign of Shakespeare, Chaucer or Jane Austen in their courses. Many British universities have removed the literary giants from their syllabus in an effort to decolonize the curriculum and to move away from white, Western and Eurocentric knowledge, whatever that means. Some academics believe that removing such authors from their modules will tackle the discrepancy in average marks between white students and those from ethnic minority backgrounds. So for our great British debate this hour, I'm asking, should students still be taught Shakespeare? I have the pleasure of being joined by Don't Divide Us director, Dr. Alka Cuthbert. Alka, how are you?
Hello, Calvin. Fine, thank you.
Good. This sounds to me straight off the bat like a patronising assumption that black people are not clever enough to understand Shakespeare. Am I misunderstanding this?
Yes, I think it is very patronising. I mean, their argument, to pass their argument, is they're saying that they're making the claim that knowledge and even thinking itself is completely reducible to politics. They're the same thing. And that is really quite dangerous because it allows no room for the kind of free space for independent thinking. So it's really, really patronising. It's also wrong. It's kind of like historically wrong because I think it concedes far too much to the idea that everything that has been produced or that is the preserve of the West is for white people only. I mean, this is really a bit of a nonsense because when you think of how knowledge and culture has developed, you know, hybridity and appropriation are central to it.
Well, Shakespeare is a great example of that, isn't it? Because Shakespeare belongs to the world, surely.
So I missed that.
Surely Shakespeare belongs to the world.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if knowledge is, you know, if knowledge is to, if you like, pass all the various tests, and that includes the test of time, then it becomes universal. It does so precisely because its generalizable power or its application, if you're talking about the sciences, is, you know, extends far beyond the specific context of its production. That's what makes it really good, powerful knowledge or powerful literature that appeals to everyone, from, you know, people like my dad who read Shakespeare in an Indian village on a dirt floor to, you know, undergraduates at Oxbridge.
And Dr. Alka, can I ask you in this context, what does decolonization actually mean? Because there were no colonies when these people were writing, surely.
No, they weren't. The ideology of decolonizing is a very, it's an ideology very pertinent to the current moment. It's, like I said before, it's based on seeing politics everywhere. Everything becomes politicized. In this case, even, you know, knowledge and our thinking. These become proxies for power, and it's like they have no reality in themselves. So you can see it's incredibly anti-intellectual. People advocating it, what is rather worrying is that this is being advocated and quite aggressively promoted by people in bodies like Advanced HE in the higher education sector, professional bodies, you know, the National Association of Teachers of English amongst teachers, exam boards. You can see it spreading beyond the citadels of academia itself. Our recent report shows how councils, you know, when a lot of councils who are reaching out, trying to make themselves over in a new anti-racist way, see decolonizing as a justified, you know, and a good thing to do without any understanding of how wrong, how flawed it is. And also, you know, I mean, it's like incredibly, you know, as you said, it is really patronizing to think. It's saying to students, you can only really learn and achieve if you literally see yourself represented, right? That means you have no imagination.
I've got to move on, but before I go, I want to ask, what can people do if they want to find out more alternatives to this decolonization nonsense? Where can they go, please?
Please come to our website. We have lots on decolonizing. We have school materials, curriculum materials that are really that are based on a far more liberal and humanistic approach. Look at our website. If you like us, join us, help us, challenge it, help us make more materials.
Plug in there. What's the website, Alka? What's the website?
The website, don'tdivideus.com.
There we go. Thank you very much. That's Dr. Alka Cuthbert, Director of Don't Divide Us. I'm also joined now by Imarn Ayton. Imarn is an activist and organiser of Black Lives Matter protests. Imarn and I have debated many times over the years. So Imarn, start me off. What's your perspective on this? Why do you think that people like Shakespeare and Chaucer should no longer be taught?
So I think it's just about finding balance, right? And I think maybe for universities, they feel that a part or a lot of their curriculum is whitewashed, and so trying to find that balance, maybe removing Shakespeare and etc. And ultimately, this is with the aim of increasing student engagement. That's always the priority. That should be the main priority of any university. So when it comes down to anti-racism and decolonizing the curriculum, they're one and the same. All right. So decolonizing the curriculum isn't just. I'm
not quite sure how removing Shakespeare or Chaucer is anti-racist or decolonizing. So I need to push you a bit further on that. What does that mean? Is it just removing dead white men?
No, let me continue. So let me continue, and then hopefully you'll have a bit more of a wider perspective. So anti-racism and decolonizing the curriculum are one and the same. So decolonizing the curriculum isn't just about the content, it's also about pedagogies, all right? So the way in which we teach, and that is ultimately centered around student engagement. So it is both the content and the pedagogies that contribute to the attainment gap, which is ultimately what we're referring to. And this is why there were many reports over the years that offer these same recommendations. For example, the Equality Human Rights Commission of 2019 that delves into racial harassment in higher education. Universities UK also released a report in 2020 with the same results. We also have Universities UK reports for 2019 that was called Closing the Gap, and that is all about the attainment gap. They released an updated version this year, and it's called Closing the Gap 3 years on. And all of these 4 reports, the recommendations are more or less the same. It includes a whole institutional approach in terms of tackling racial disparities and racial harassment. It also includes having conversations about race, right, centered around race equality, etc. It also talks about Wait, hold on for a second. It also talks about.
I have let you talk for a couple of minutes.
Hold on.
If you don't mind.
You haven't.
Because I'm a little bit confused.
It also talks about inclusion.
Imarn, I'm going to ask you a question.
Hold on. That's important in terms of student engagement.
We're talking here about the knowledge being delivered being too white, too Western, and too Eurocentric. In Great Britain, a predominantly white country, should it not be okay for the curriculum to be covering a majority of white authors, Western authors, European authors? Is it not backwards thinking to say, actually, to be more inclusive, we need to remove white people and add more black people? Surely to be inclusive means adding people, not removing. And what is wrong?
I've given you the answer twice. So I said it when I first started.
Then I must be dense because I'm not understanding how this is helping.
The disparities and racial harassment, and there is evidence. There's qualitative evidence and quantitative evidence to say that these recommendations make a difference. Hold on a second.
Suggesting that ethnic minorities and white people learn Shakespeare and Chaucer differently?
You want me to answer? I'm going to answer, but let me finish. At this point,
I'll let you answer the question, but I'm not going to let shout over you.
I'm answering the question. Let's move forward. All of these things contribute to the attainment gap. This is the goal.
In what way?
Decrease the attainment gap.
We all want to decrease the attainment gap.
In order to decrease the attainment gap, you need to increase students' engagement. In order to do that, you need to ensure that all
ethnic minority people cannot engage with Shakespeare.
University are engaged. That is why you find balance. So if there is too much Shakespeare, you take some out and you replace it with something that is more engaging for the various cohorts within the classroom. It's as simple as that.
Love your explanation. Thank you very much. Imarn Ayton, anti-racist activist and organiser of Black Lives Matter protests.